You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
All right, welcome in another episode, Ain't No Seats podcast. Today is a special one. Before we get into that, though, we got to talk about Emprise Bank. There's more options to do banking now more than ever. Who you work with is more important than how close they are to your home. Emprise has digital banking that meets you where you are on your phone, on your computer, or even your smartwatch. A trusted partner is at your fingertips. Shout out Emprise Bank. Let's get into it. I don't want to waste any time. This is one that we've had this pod, 4 or 5 years now, B-Turn, and we've always kind of said, can you imagine if we get this guy on? We got to make it happen. We've got him today. He's a KU legend. He's a top 10 scorer in Kansas history, went to 2 Final Fours, played in the national title game. Keith Langford, happy to have you. How's everything going for you?
Yes, good. And thanks for having me on. And I want to say, man, I definitely owed you guys this episode. I want to say it was a while back. So I can't remember exactly who reached out, but didn't make the connection. So I made it a point when we got circled back this time. I said, I'm doing it. I don't care what's going on. So I'm here. I appreciate the persistence. And yeah, man, everything's good. Just finished a long day. But I mean, now, so I got the pie, some basketball, and a couple more Modelo's waiting on me when I finish. So
there you go. There you go. B-Turn, I think you're muted, B-Turn. I hope so.
Yep. We usually start with player guests, just getting like a life update and things like that. So can you kind of tell us what you're doing right now? I know you're down in Texas, but other than that, we don't even know. So an update for us and KU fans.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I am home. I just this past May had Achilles surgery. I didn't rupture my Achilles, but I had what's called an Achilles tendinopathy, and so I had surgery to fix that. Tried to rehab it for a while. Tried to play, but didn't work. Didn't work out. So yeah, pretty much. I mean, I guess this is the first time publicly that I said that I'm done playing basketball. So
wow,
yeah, man. So 17 years, man, it's been a hell of a run, and yeah, that's pretty much. So I'm home. I'm taking kids to school, dropping them off, going to swim practice, and basketball practice, and soccer, and I am officially transitioning right now. So, but it's cool. I still go get my fix in at the gym every now and then, and I get, I've had a couple, I get to play pickup every now and then, and guys are like, shocked, and they're asking me like, man, hey, did you ever play anywhere? And, so I kind of get my competitive fix in at the local gym on like the 40 and 50-year-olds. So that's pretty cool.
That's got to be miserable for those guys.
That's kind of wild, because before we started this, we were just talking about you and your career and how long you played. We were like, dude, is he still playing? Just because you played overseas forever. So yeah, that's kind of wild. We were wondering what you were, or if you were still playing or not. But I guess before we even get into your KU career, we could talk about, obviously most Hoopers' dreams are playing in the NBA, but you made a killing overseas. You played in a ton of different countries. So I guess, was there ever a point where you just got over you played in the NBA briefly, but was there ever a point where you kind of got over not playing in the NBA and you were satisfied overseas, and you were loved by all those fans, and you made a ton of money too?
Yeah. It's such a layered question, because I can't say that there was like an aha moment, but it's kind of like a series of events that took place that led to that. So I think maybe the first domino to fall was I was in a situation where, coming out of school, financially, I took money from an agent, and I do what most 21-year-olds do when they get a lot of money and they don't understand what to do with it. They spend it and they blow it and don't realize that you have to pay it back. So I had financial issues pressing me. And then secondly, when I actually did, like you said, briefly was able to play those games in with San Antonio, I was only there 6 games, only played in 2. But it was a relief in the sense of, man, I did it. I got here in the regular season. And I really did it at a time where it was like, there are no two ways. There are no, it was just a time when basketball was like, it was really difficult to make that jump. And coming from where I came from, undrafted, spent a brief period in the USBL, then was overseas for a year, and then came back to make the Spurs. And then once I was released, we were in Los Angeles. Popovich came to me, told me that I was developing, I was close, I was good, they liked me, but Manu Ginobili was injured, and they needed a veteran to sustain. So they didn't drop off, and he didn't feel like I was ready to fill that role. And he told me exactly, looked me in my face, told me they were releasing me for Damon Stoudemire. And so at that point, once I got the offer to go to Europe, I guess there was something that happened in between that. I could tell that story later in the interview. But after that, one little event happened, and I got an offer to go to Italy and Europe. Like, I just really kind of never looked back. And I played myself into a situation where I started getting contract offers that I really couldn't refuse to play summer league or go to a free agent minicamp. And at that point, once I recognized the financial security, and I recognized, me as a player being able to maximize, myself and get as good as I can, and I'm going to play, I'm going to be important. I have a chance to really build something of my career. I couldn't turn that down to be a 10th, 12th, 14th man.
I mean, I love how you did it, because obviously, the dream as a kid and even in college, it's play in the NBA, I'm sure. But I think at the end of the day, the dream is truly play basketball as long as you can and get paid to do it. Like, that's the coolest part of it. And the fact that you did that till, God, I mean, you basically had.
I'll be 40 in September. You can say it. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know. I knew you were somewhere around there. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome that did you see your pro career lasting as long as it did?
So, and it's weird, because here's the thing, like, I never saw my pro career, because I honestly never saw myself at Kansas. I never saw myself. I wasn't one of those guys, and I've said this in plenty of interviews, that I didn't grow up in pursuing the NBA and in dreams of the NBA. Like, it wasn't my waking moment. Of course, I like sports, and I watched, and I love football growing up. I'm a Texas guy, and football is king down here. But I really do feel that the guys that conceptualize the NBA or NFL or whatever early on, those are the people that end up being in that position. So, like, if you ever met like they tell a story about LeBron James, he's in 5th grade, and they like write down 5 things that you want to be in your NBA 5 times. And his teacher's like, well, you got to have a backup option. He's like, there is no backup option. And so I'm saying, like, the sooner people have those types of, that type of way of thinking, I think they're ahead of the curve. And I think one thing that I did, it was like, oh, okay, everybody's playing basketball. All right, I'll go play. All right, we got to make varsity. All right, I'll make varsity. Oh, we got to get a scholarship. I'll get a scholarship. And then, that from there it was, and so I just was always doing what was next. And it wasn't until later that I told myself, oh man, hey, look, like, I'm really going to buy into this. I really have an appreciation. I really have a love. Like, I can really make this my livelihood. And so I didn't have that grasp early on. Like, I knew how to play hard. I knew the level, and my peers and everybody around me, like, I knew the things that they wanted, but I had never really sat down and asked myself, like, what am I really doing? What am I really trying to accomplish? So I really think that was part of the reason why, because if that was my goal and I really had that kind of outlook, I would have left Kansas after my sophomore year, or I would have left, I really would have been trying to pursue that angle and get there. But I just was, was doing what I thought, what was supposed to be done. I really wasn't approaching it that way. So finally, saying all that to say, when I did approach it that way, I didn't care about the NBA. I cared about, financial security. I cared about being the best Keith that I could possibly be when I woke up every day. And I really was able to let it go once I had a mentor and somebody to really sit me down and help me, ask myself those questions and understand what I really was doing every day I woke up.
Yeah. I was looking up just Keith Langford stuff on Google and saw an article. I forget who wrote it, but they were talking. Obviously, you dealt with injuries at KU, some knee stuff, but you said someone told you that you wouldn't last longer than 5 years or something like that after you left KU. So to play that long, obviously, is I'm not sure who told you that, but to play that long and deal with those injuries is incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I told that story, and you know, man, my man Bill Cowgill, shout out to Bill, man, he's a great guy. He's still there, Cheddar Bill. And here's the thing, like I told that story, and I think people kind of took it as like, you know, he was kind of like, you know, shitting on me, excuse my language, but like it really wasn't that. He was really, you know, being honest, and because it was a microfracture surgery, and at that point in time, you know, 2004. 2005, around that time, like, you know, microfracture surgery it ended Penny Hardaway's career. It, you know, Darius Miles, Chris Webber, Jamal Mashburn, Mari Stoudemire, Jason Kidd, like, so it was one of those things where that injury, you know, it was, you know, taking people's athleticism from them and cutting their career short. And so there wasn't a lot of research on how to rehab it. It was early. And so really, where it happened is I really got lucky and fortunate to get to a team and in a space in Europe to where I met someone, man. There was a fantastic functional resistance trainer. I was playing in Moscow at the time. I signed a 2-year deal. I signed a 2-year deal for $2.6 million, and this is 2009. And so 1.3 per season. And so, but that summer, you know, my knee is killing me. Like, and it's literally the knee that Bill Cowgill told me about. And I get to, and like literally in training camp, I'm like kind of limping around. I'm just like, you know, trying to get through drills, but my knee is killing me. I'm hurt, I'm tired, I'm slower. And finally, and in my mind, I'm thinking like, man, if I just get one of these years, you know, okay, I can start my life. Like, I literally was thinking that this is in 2009. And I'm like, my knee's killing me every day. Like, I got 2 days. I was like, I'm not going to make it. I just need to find a way to get through these 10 months. And then finally, the guy's name is Bram Swinney. He's a Belgian guy. He's a trainer on the team. And I finally went to him and I said, hey, man, look, I'm not going to be able to finish training camp. My knee is killing me. It's, you know, I've had a couple surgeries on it. I had a microfracture. And, man, he looked me dead in my face and he was like, okay, be here in the morning. And, man, like and what I ended up figuring out was like, and man, this guy, man, even if you look him up now, man, he's incredible. He's one of the most revered trainers in the world. And so anyway, he started helping me understand the dynamics and mechanisms of my body, where I was weak. You know, my glutes were weak, my hamstrings. So I was being quad dominant, which was rubbing and pulling and contracting and scraping the cartilage away from my knee. So, you know, we kind of like reshaped my body, changed the way I was running, changed the way my feet were striking the ground, got some insoles. And I just really learned the mechanics of my body and how to take care of it. And that changed everything. So I'm telling that story to say, hey, Cheddar, you know, he was just telling me what it was at the time. Like, I never meant it as, you know, trying to like put me down or anything. But, you know, it was just one of those like shocking moments. Like, you know, I had no idea, but I was very lucky to be to meet Braun at the time that I did, because, you know, he kind of saved me.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's been incredible to see where you've gotten and how far your career's taken you, but I definitely want to take it back to the beginning, because I think KU fans love to hear these stories, but producers tell them we got to kick it to a quick 30-second break. We'll be right back, and we're going to get into how you ended up at Kansas. So quick break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
So I brought it up, right? We've had, I think, is Jeff Graves the only Roy guy we've had, B-Turn?
Billy Thomas and Gurley, right?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
BT and Gurley, yeah. I don't know if anyone else.
it's fun. I'm very excited for this, just to hear about all this, because we've had tons of Bill Self guys. We've heard about Bill Self recruiting guys and that stuff, but hearing the Roy side of things and just talk about that a little bit. You said you Texas kid, but obviously ended up coming to Kansas playing for Roy. What was it about Kansas and Roy that had you come to Lawrence?
Yeah, man. So funny thing, I mean, you mentioned Coach Self first. Like, now my first contact with Coach Self was when he was still coaching at Tulsa, and I was in high school, man. And him and Billy Gillespie were recruiting me to try to come to Tulsa, and then he leaves Tulsa, goes to Illinois, and he's recruiting me there. And I still, and then finally he ends up coaching me anyway. So so it's crazy how that works out. But anyway, the Kansas, man, it was I've told this story so much. Like it's really one of those things where I was and it's funny, I was at my mom's house a couple weeks ago, and I was looking through like some old recruiting letters and looking through old clickings and all kind of stuff like that, and the way I remember the story is one way, but it's interesting when you read different things and quotes and articles and stuff like that. Like it puts you back in that time. So really, what was happening was I was committed to Ole Miss. So as the summer after my sophomore year, going into my junior year of high school, like I committed to Mississippi. And the reason I did it was because prior to that, I was only being recruited by like North Texas, Stephen F. Austin, smaller schools like that. And so we had no clue. I wasn't playing AAU, and we had no clue or concept about what was going on. And so finally, my best friend at the time, who was a really good player, gets invited to Team Texas AAU tryout. He asked if I would come with him. And so in the tryout, I jump in there with the guys in the tryout. And man, I played really well. Long story short, they ended up keeping me, letting him go. And man, I get on the circuit and we're playing. And the crazy thing about it is that in my high school, I was playing the power forward. But the AAU coach recognized and said, "Hey man, you're pretty athletic, got some good size." He was like, "Man, if you could make it to the perimeter, I think you have a chance to get recruited at a higher level." So I was like, okay. So literally during the summer, I'm working on the perimeter with him, but in my high school, I'm playing the four. So anyway, we go on the circuit. I get invited to Nike camp. And back then, Nike All-America camp was at one place at IUPUI. And they just take the top 150 players, and they all go to IUPUI campus and you play. And this is back like Tyson Chandler, Eddie Curry, DeJuan Wagner, Kwame Brown, all those guys. People probably won't even, some guys probably don't remember that. But so it was Nike camp and ABCD camp, Adidas, those two. And so anyway, I'm playing well. My name is kind of, but I'm committed to Ole Miss. I'm playing. And finally, we were playing in Georgia at the Augusta Peach Jam. And I had a teammate named Bracy Wright who played at Indiana. And Bracy was a year younger than me, but Kansas was recruiting Bracy. And they were there watching Bracy, but I was playing really, really well. I was like one of the top 3 or 4 scorers in the tournament at that time. And then so afterwards, Coach Neil Doherty was there. He asked about me to my coach, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's Keith, but he's going to Ole Miss." And then so the next day, Coach Doherty comes back to watch, but he brings Coach Williams, and then they watch. And then Coach Doherty tells my AAU coach, "Hey, Roy really likes him, but we won't touch him unless he decommits." And so that was kind of the first hint that I heard. I was like, "Oh, really? Like they're interested?" And then so after Nike camp, Peace Jam, Nike Super Showcase, I get back to Fort Worth, and my high school coach is like, he said, "Hey man, I got a call today from Bob Luggins, Lou Olson, Roy Williams, and Kelvin Sampson. Like, what they're doing this summer." And I was like, wow. And then at that point, but none of them would actively recruit me unless I decommitted. And then so at that point, we finally sat down and talked and booked my mom, and we decommitted from Ole Miss. And then, but the only way that it was told to me that the only way I could get the scholarship at Kansas was if Josh Childress, Allen Anderson, Chuck Hayes, and Daniel Ewing all said no. It was those four had to, so those four were the guys that they wanted. All four of them had to say no. And then luckily enough, Deshaun Stevenson entered the draft. So it was like, hey, we don't have a two guard. And so at that point for me, it was, and I wanted to go to Arizona, but Arizona was taking Salim Stoudemire, which, so I kind of got screwed twice with the Stoudemire family. Like Salim Stoudemire in Arizona, Stoudemire is the reason why I got cut from the Spurs. So, so it was me. I was really thinking like, all right, and it was like it was Oklahoma, Baylor, and Cincinnati, and I go to visit Cincinnati. And I get off the plane from Cincinnati. I tell my mom, I was like, hey, I'm going to DC. And my mom was like, no, you're not. We're going to wait to see what Kansas does. And then so finally, I waited. Everybody said no. And I went on my visit. And I was like, yeah, I can't pass this up. This is crazy. It just, everything fell into place. And it doesn't happen like that. And so I just, yeah, that was it, man. That's
crazy.
How I ended up there.
Wow. Crazy how many things had to go one way for you to end up there. But glad it did.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so let's get into 2002, and I'm excited about this, and this is a huge reason why we've wanted you on for so long, because this is really, like, the dudes that run this podcast, this was our childhood, like, when we really first started watching KU basketball, like, we're 8, 9 years old, and that 2002 team, like, I really can make the case for at least the best team I've seen since I've been watching, and just so much fun. Like, I was looking at the box scores earlier. You guys scored 100 plus 12 times that year,
right.
90 plus in 20 games. So fun to watch. Obviously, you have Drew, Nick, Kirk, you, Boshi. What were your expectations and goals as a freshman, and what do you think Roy, like, what play did he have mapped out for you as a freshman?
Well, the first thing was, I think it speaks to, like, part of the kind of genius of Coach Williams, because, I think this was the first time he didn't have the traditional small forward. I think, he had Kenny Gregory, he had Paul Pierce, he had, he always had guys that were kind of slotted in that space. And so, man, his thing, from the beginning was, I don't care if we don't have a traditional forward. We're going to get the ball out of the basket and go. And he was like, we had a 5-game, and we had a secondary break, and that's literally all we did all season. And so we had a couple plays that they would call sometimes during, but like some box set type plays. But for the most part, man, he literally taught us, how to, like, setting a better screen. The better screen you set, the more open that you'll be. Relocating on weak side cuts and things, and he just wanted us to incorporate basketball action in our motion. And as long as we were doing that, there really were no rules to what it was that, and obviously get it inside. Like, Dick and Drew have to touch the ball, and so that was kind of how we did it. And so for me personally, it was man, like, here's an important thing about having guidance as a basketball player, and really understanding what you're getting into, and, like, preparation and things like that. Like, I had no concept of these things. I just was a kid playing as hard as I could to try to accomplish the best thing that I could. So going to Kansas, like, and being from Fort Worth, I had some experience with AAU, but I literally only did it for 2 summers, right? So in my mind, I played AAU. I had all these schools recruiting me. I'm the best in my high school. I'm one of the top 5 players in the state of Texas. And so, like, and when I watched Kansas. I watched Kansas play on TV one time before they started recruiting me. And there was an NCAA tournament game against Prairie View, which is, really wasn't trying to watch the game, but it was like, Prairie View is like regional for Texas. And so they had it on TV for our location. And so, but man, I had no concept of, Kurt, Boshi, Nick, Kurt, all those guys. And so when I finally started watching and I'm looking and I'm like, oh, hold on, okay, Kurt Henley, George Boshi. I said, oh man, I'm going to start next year. I said, oh man, these white guys can't guard me right now. Yeah. I'm gonna go up there, man. And I'm just like, oh man, this is perfect. This is gonna be, and man, literally like, so I go up there and like, in the first summer pickup session, man, I was like, oh okay, the fucking monster. Jeff Boshi, he can hoop and he can shoot, and they're tough and they're not scared, and man, and so, and immediately, man. But the thing about it that was so crazy was that like, I get there, man, and from Boshi to Kurt, Drew to Nick, like, man, everything you see in interviews, everything you see on the court, the energy, the vibe, the camaraderie is real. It's authentic. And I felt it, and they embraced me, man. I let go of all of that energy, and I was like, man, I want to be part of this. This is incredible. So I immediately dropped a lot of that selfishness, and I jumped into like, all right, okay, like, oh, we want to win the Big 12, we want to win the championship, this is what we're doing. Okay, how do I help? And so I dropped a lot of the selfish stuff I had and really just, bought into what, Kansas basketball was. And so that was really kind of my first initial learning experience.
Yeah. I mean, whenever we talk about that 02 team, I mean, me and B-Turn talk about the 02 team all the time. I don't know why we love that team so much, but just in like 03, and we'll talk about 03, I feel like everyone talks about 2003 because they made the title game, and they had, you guys had in that 2003 season, you had the Arizona Elite Eight game, you had the Duke Sweet 16 game, where 02, you guys kind of just flew through it, you made to the Final Four, and then ran into a really good team. But like, if you had to choose, who do you think, if you play those teams 10 times, if 02 plays 03, is 02 the better team?
Oh, I mean, easily. 02 is, but and here's the thing about it though, but that 02, I mean, we won 30-something games, but I remember losing to Ball State in Maui. Yeah. I was like, oh shit, maybe we're not that good. I was nervous. I was like worried. I was like, man, I thought we were like so dominant. But anyway, it was just, we were figuring it out. But to, 02, man, was just, I mean, I don't think people understand, like, because the game has no post play anymore, really. Like, they're not used to seeing guys dominate, big men dominate, with jump hooks, up and unders, and rebounds, and, footwork. So I think people underestimate, and they don't understand, like, it was really a cheat code to have Drew Gooden and Nick Collison blocking. It just, I don't think, I can't explain to you the security blanket, but just, just being able to just say, here, and throwing it down there, knowing that one of those guys are going to find some type of solution, and the pressure that it alleviated, from everybody else, and the games that it allowed, us to play. I mean, it was, Drew Gooden was like, man, phenomenal college player. And Nick was extremely dominant. And I don't think either of those guys' pro careers and their pro situations reflect the level of play that they could have displayed had those teams really been invested in them, and it had been a situation where they were really trying to use those guys. But yeah, man, that 02 team, I just think the 02 team just had too many weapons, or too many X factors. Like, I mean, that 03 team didn't have anybody that could come off the bench and score 20. Like I said, 02, I could come off the bench and have a 20, a 19, a 15. We really didn't have that element in 03. 03, we really just, man, we rode 6 guys. After Wayne got hurt, we rode 6 guys, for the entire year pretty much.
Yeah, and then I wanted to talk about a little more about that season. Obviously, you guys go 16-0 in Big 12 play. The game at Texas sticks out a lot. The game at Mizzou, the final game of the season, sticks out a lot. Kind of wanted you to touch just on those shootouts you guys got in, the Mizzou game. I guess if you could touch on Mizzou fans a little bit, and then just your guys' mood going into the Final Four as a whole. I know you just talked about how good you guys were, but if you were just convinced that you guys would win it all, even though Maryland obviously had Juan Dixon and
Chris Wilcox, Lonnie Baxter, Byron Mouton, they were loaded, man. But so the first part, I guess All right, I'll start backwards. The final, like this tournament, I don't know if you remember, but man, that Holy Cross game came down to the last.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
Heinrich like rolled his ankle, right?
Right, yeah. Kirk
Yeah.
hurts his ankle. But they had a point guard on that team. I think the guy's name was Jabe Me, exactly his name. And man, the dude was, I mean, man, he was hooping. And the tough thing about those 116 games or those 215 games is that a lot of those teams, they're seniors and they're battle tested. They're redshirt seniors or they're seniors, and they're the best that their conference has to offer. So they're confident, and they have nothing to lose. And the crazy thing about it, the dynamic is when you're playing those games and they're close, what starts to happen is that everybody else that's there from the other teams, they start cheering for that seed to knock you off. So now they get energized from the crowd cheering for them because they want it to be easier for their team. And so we started feeling that pressure, man. And so it wasn't necessarily a cakewalk, but we got our stinker game out of the way. And then everything else was so easy, quote unquote. Like, we pretty much like were in control of everything that once we got to Maryland. And man, like it was the first time that I saw somebody, okay, Chris Wilcox he's the same height. He jumps just as high, if not higher. He's able to meet Drew at the rim on everything. He's able to physically battle. Nick Collison has a counterpart in Lonnie Baxter. Jeff Boshi, Kirk Howard, Juan Dixon, Steve Blake. Like, I mean, we were pretty much a mirror of one another. And it was obvious that Maryland had just been there the year before and they had a different version. And so we were so elated, and I think all of Kansas was so excited about getting back to that Final Four after 10 years that, man, we didn't exactly have the laser focus, and some of those games made us relax a little bit. And so I tell people all the time that the Final Four, college is tricky, man, because the Final Four is there's so much energy and media and attention that goes in just making the Final Four. It's almost like that's a series, and so like, oh, Final Four, we got it, like it's the four, and and so the tendency is, all right, okay, we did it, but the team that can lock in again and understand that the work's not done, that's typically the team that's going to win it. And so I think that first year, we didn't have a good grasp of that, and we really exhaled too soon by just making it, because the going back to the field house and seeing everybody in the field house, seeing everything on MASH, it was just like, man, everybody was so happy that, like, damn, we got to, emotionally recharge. So that was the tough part. And I'm sorry, man, what was the first part of the question? I
was talking about 16-0 in Big 12 play, and some of the games that, I was wondering about Mizzou fans. We've talked about
Mizzou fans, right.
Players, about K-State Mizzou fans a lot.
Yeah, I think that, and here's the cool thing about Missouri fans, man, and during that time, the college basketball rivalries in general, like, there's no social media, so you have to be way more creative in your heckling and your hazing, your taunting or whatever you want to call it. And so, man, at that time, man, I mean, the Missouri fans, I have to give them credit for being extremely creative and extreme assholes. And so, like, I mean, literally, so for example, like at that time in Jayhawk Towers, we still had, phones to the room. And so like house phones, like that plugged into the wall or whatever, right? And so, but the way the towers were set up, depending on, like you go 302C, 202C, 102C, and there's like the phone numbers are all listed, and it's like the last four numbers is just, if you change the last number, you can get the next room and the next room and the next room. And so like literally the week that we're going to play Missouri, I mean, the phones are ringing from the morning time until like, and it does not stop. It is 24-hour constant ringing. And you unplug the phone from the wall, but anytime you plug it back in, it's literally ringing. So it's always ringing. So they're calling the room. They're pulling fire alarms in Jayhawk Towers. Not to mention they're pulling fire alarms. And when we got to Columbia, they were, they're sending you stuff in the mail. They are. I mean, and they just did so much. Like I haven't seen I don't know if they ban like signs and everything like that now, but the couple games that I've watched, I don't see as much signs as I used to see. And so I remember the very last game in the Hearn Center. So I'll get back to the 16-0 in a second. But so if you guys remember J.R. Giddens got in trouble before coming to Kansas with the little Walmart incident. Like he got caught. Yeah. And so anyway, we go to Missouri and we walk out to shoot, and the entire student section has Walmart vests on. And they have a sign that says Giddens rollback prices. And I mean, like it was, but they also did hateful stuff like Nick Collison's grandfather was like a World War II pilot, and like they had like signs about plane crash, burning plane, and they did all that stuff like that. I mean, it was just they were really mad, so it always felt good that I never lost there when I was there.
Yeah.
It was amazing atmosphere to play in, man. Just the Hearn Center and that intensity and that I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that vibe, man. So at the 16-0, I mean, we really weren't going after it, but at one point when we got to, I want to say we beat Nebraska and I made a 3-pointer, kind of sealed the game. And there was another game after that, and then so it made us like 11 or 12-0. And at that point, I think Coach Williams was like, "Hey, why not? Let's go ahead and let's do it. Like this is going to be our goal. Let's go ahead and because nobody had done it up until that point that we knew of anyway, and that's what everybody was saying. So literally, we were 11 to 12-0. So all right, okay.
Love it. Yeah, I mean that team was obviously fun, but we got to talk about 03. I want to get into 03. We got one more break here, and we'll be right back to talk about that 2003 run.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
So obviously the 2003 team, it's a lot of the same characters, right? But you did lose, Drew Gooden, Jeff Boschee, big names. You now step into that starting role. You're kind of a go-to guy at this point. When I think about that team, I think all about that, feel like that team had struggles throughout the year a little bit. I think you were, a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament?
Two.
Yeah. So it's not like you were the resounding, best team in the country all year, kind of like 2 was. So, but I think about that tournament run. I think it's one of the most fun tournament runs I can ever remember. The beating Duke's always a blast. The Arizona game was, revenge, as you say, even more revenge than I realized because you were getting, you owed Salim one from before college. But, just talk about that March run. Like, is there coming back in 03, obviously the goal is to win the national title. Were you guys, you talked about kind of like that happy to be there element in 02. Was it a different mindset for you guys in 03 heading into that Final Four and even that whole tournament?
Yeah. So here's the thing that was interesting. Like, so me, Wayne, and Aaron, the year before we really were in a complimentary space. And so I remember like that summer, like us working and we were like, yeah, it's our turn. And, we're really stepping into like the meat of the team. Like, we're really, because before, Drew and Bosch, like, obviously we take the back seat to those guys, but now it's like, all right, all 3 of us are going to start and we're all going to be together. And so, but man, what ended up happening in the beginning is that like, we didn't realize, oh, this is hard. Like, it's hard to be the guy. Like, it's like, you're no longer, your 15 points is no longer complimentary or a cherry on top or, Aaron's, now Aaron was always started, but all of our performances and all of us showing up every night was needed. And it was needed at a high level. And I think that adapting and understanding that was tough in the beginning. So we start 3-3. We had some really tough, losses. But man, this is where I give Nick and Kirk so much credit. And those guys, man, they stepped up, they led us, and man, right into getting into what you asked about the NCAA tournament. So we win the Big 12, and then so we know we're not gonna be a number one seed, but nobody expects the seeding to drop the way it did. And I'm looking and we're like, I don't know if everybody has the footage of when, you watch and you see the seeding. And we're like, yeah, dude, Arizona. And even at that time, Arizona State had a really good team. They had Ike Diodlu, Tommy Smith. They had like a team that they had pros on their team. Then there was Utah State. That was a really tough team. They had a couple guys who ended up.
That game was tight too, right? Kind of like the Holy Cross game the year before.
What about Holy Cross?
Was that a close game that first round that year? Am I thinking the Utah State game?
Yeah, Utah State came down to the last minute, last second. It was a close game. So, but here's the thing about it. Before that run, right? Like all of those names, they dropped. The teams dropped, and we're like, yeah, okay, you see what's going on, and we're going out west. So everybody's like, when we look around and like, Kirk, man, listen, Kirk hired, and then like somebody needs to do like a documentary about this guy one day. Somebody, so I'm telling you, listen, if you can ever get inside his head and get stories about Kirk Howard, man, he's a legend, man. He's one of a kind. He's extremely special, and he's, I have the most respect, for him. So man, he's just like, all right, fuck it, let's go play. Because, all right, I don't care. And now that was his thing. Like, I mean, the man, he just no fear. And when he said that, he was like, all right, I don't care. He was, okay, so what? All right, we're gonna have to beat, all right, let's beat Duke in Arizona if we have to. Because we knew it would come down to that. And so that's why, like, this year, man, I saw where a lot of people were like, oh, we don't get rewarded for getting the seeding and all of this thing and all this. And I was like, I'm just always like, so what? Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Play, man. Let's line it up. You know what I mean? Like, give me 4 and let's go. And so, and that was just how we approached them there. We went in there and man, just head first. And it was one of those things where like, we just decided that we were going to win from day one. And so it was like literally, and the reason why it hurt losing so bad to Syracuse, it wasn't the free throws. It wasn't McNamara's 6 threes in the first half. It wasn't, man, it was just because nobody on that team from top to bottom had saw us losing. Like it was a foregone conclusion, and we had already decided that we were going to win. And it gets hurt. Okay, fine, cool, all right, whatever. Jeff, step up. Rumors about Coach Williams leaving. All right, I don't care. Like, man, we just kept. It was like we are winning and shit. And so it was just like when it happened, it was like, no, like really, like this is, well, what?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if I'm doing a good job of explaining that or not, but
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's really just was the vibe, man. So,
but I think that's why this fan base still to this day. I mean, obviously. March, most of the time you experience a tough loss, but that Syracuse game is the one that just forever people will talk about. Right. And we've lost in other national title games before, right. But that one, because that team it's wrong you didn't win at all. Like Nick and Kirk, they deserved it. You and Aaron Miles deserved it. Wayne's and Roy, maybe most of all, for all he had done at Kansas to that point.
No,
did not.
Never won one here.
So it was just brutal.
It is
to end like that.
It is because obviously that changes the trajectory of so much, right? So maybe Roy doesn't leave, who leaves after winning a championship?
That would be incredible.
And literally, I remember before the game, the day before a shoot around, we're in the locker room, and me and Jed Graves were talking. We're gonna win this, and then let's jump in near this draft. And so it was like we made a pact that like, all right, let's go, let's roll. So like, I mean, you have like there's storylines, man. There's there's so much happening behind the scenes, and like, you know, so if you win it, you know, history, it looks a lot different. You know what I mean? Maybe that's never was on scene. You know what I mean? And so like this, and so much happened. You know, that chain of events. So losing that game, man.
Yeah.
And other than, you know, maybe that's, you know, who, you know, based on the performances in the Final Four, like maybe I'm MOP. So maybe I'm in line to, you know, have a chance to get my jersey retired, you know. So, but, you know, who knows? You know, so I'm saying like that line is so thin. It's more than just losing the game. Like there's legacy, there's storylines, there's, you know, so much trajectory changes.
It is crazy because I think your class, like you, Miles, Simeon, Mike Lee, like you guys are one of the, and maybe it's, well, I think you are, but for us, especially guys our age, like you were the first big time, you know, class we followed from the whole way. But even just you bringing that up, like your whole story of playing at Kansas, playing for Roy Williams during the stretch you had from 02 to 03, and then to play for the start of what we've now seen to be the Bill Self era, like, what you guys are a huge part of the overall story of Kansas basketball because of that. And so I know you've probably talked about this tons of times, but I know our listeners would love to hear about it. You know, you mentioned it. Roy, there was the rumors going on during the Final Four. That has to be tough. You guys are 19 years old. And so I guess, were you stunned? I mean, you're coming off a national title loss that you just went over was obviously shocking. And now this coach you committed to, this coach that you've been to 2 Final Fours with, is leaving. Like, was it shock? Was it anger? Was it, I mean, obviously probably all of it, but where were you at?
Man, you know, there's an interesting thing, man. The entire time in New Orleans, it's a weird dynamic to, you know, you go up you're in your room and, you know, ESPN, they're talking about, you know, they're bringing it up and they're addressing it. Reporters are asking you about it. And, you know, everybody answers the question, everybody watches it on TV. But then when we go downstairs into the meetings and the meetings and all of that stuff, when they're like, he never said anything, like never addressed it. And so there was one of those things to where, you know, okay, I don't know, maybe was that strategic or did he, you know, was it on purpose? I don't know. But him not saying anything really didn't give any nervousness to the guys of like, what is he doing? What's going on? You know, no one really fretted over it. You know, everybody just kind of assumed that, you know, because Nick and Kirk, you know, he said no the first time, that, you know, it wasn't a big thing. And so, because Coach was the type that he will always address everything head on, very honest. I mean, no, he was a crier. I mean, he'll cry on him in a second. I mean, he's extremely authentic and genuine dude. But I gotta tell a story real quick about him crying. So we're at UCLA, man. It's my freshman year. The 02 team, we're playing at UCLA, and we're playing. So like that's like, who was it? Barnes, Matt Barnes, Dan Gazurek.
Was Jason Capono on that team?
Oh no, yes, Jason Capono, Billy Knight. I mean, so like, yeah, man, this is that team. It's open. They're killing us in the first half, and, you know, Coach Williams being patient. And so anyway, he doesn't get on us. They're making a run, and so we get in the huddle, and he's like, "Look, I promise you, if you just play your game, we're gonna be there in the end. Let's go out there and let's play. We'll be there." And so everybody's like, "All right," you know, we break it down, and we go out there, man, and we make a run, and we get it to single digits, and then like we make another basket, and it's like a 1 possession game. Lavin calls timeout, and was it Steve Lavin? Yeah, Steve Lavin.
Yeah.
Calls timeout, and we come to the huddle, and everybody's like, yeah. Like we're like, you know, all the testosterone is flying around, and everybody's going crazy. And so like Coach Williams comes in the huddle, and he takes off his glasses, and he's looking down, and he looks up, man, there's like tears streaming down his eyes. I told you we would be there.
And there's still like how many minutes left in this game?
No, there's a lot of time, but no, yeah, but no, he's crying, man. He's like, I told you we would be there. And like, man, literally like man, like everybody kind of like, there's like this emotional wave that hits the group, and like the hair on my neck is like standing up, and I got these goosebumps, and like my eyes are getting glassy, and I'm like, oh shit, what's happening? Like this is so overwhelming. So anyway, like that was the kind of effect that Coach Williams had on the group. He was just so anyway. Going back to the story, saying that he just never said anything. He was not the type to avoid difficult conversation, or he was not the type to, not just be completely honest. I knew nothing else from him. So, when he didn't say anything, I said, okay, there's nothing to it. And so, but we lose, we fly back separately. He's not, with the team. Then we go back. And so we're kind of just in Lawrence for a couple of days, and we all get the message that, there's a meeting in the locker room. Okay. I mean, obviously, kind of what it's about, because now the rumors are really, really, starting to gain traction. Everybody's really talking about it, but he hasn't been in the office. None of the coaches have been in the office. Nobody's been, maybe Coach Ben Miller was around, but like, the main guys like Joe Holiday, Steve Robinson, those guys, like nobody was really around. So finally, and so we're all in the locker room. Everybody's just like, talking and they're like, so my locker is next to Kirk's. Going back to Kirk being a legend. So Kirk's just like, like this and like, and I was like, and so his nickname is Tuss. And I was like, Tuss, what's up? And I already know what he's going to say. And I was like, what is he going to say? And then as soon as I say that, Coach Williams and the staff walk in and he's crying. And I was like, yeah. I was like, he's it. And then, he's got tears in his eyes, and he's giving the whole, like, this is the hardest thing that I've ever done. I love you guys, and this is not me rejecting you, but this is me. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, nobody says anything. Everybody's quiet. And as soon as he came in, he walks out, and I'm just kind of sitting there like, this is bullshit. Like this, he's gone. Like, really, like I was like, yo, what the fuck? And so, man, and as soon as there's a bunch of reporters outside, and I remember, me and Aaron got in the car together, and as we're pulling off, like, Aaron's like, it's funny because we have a group chat with my freshman class, and like, sometimes I'll drop the picture in there, and it's like, and there's a picture there the media took, and it's Aaron, and he's leaning out of the window talking, and I always tell him that's his Tupac with Suge Knight picture. I give him that last picture that Tupac
in Vegas.
So like, I'm driving, I'm in the car like this, and Aaron's like the window, like, and I was like, and so anyway, man, yeah. So it was just, and then like, man, a few hours later, we look on ESPN and you see him getting off the plane in Chapel Hill. And it's like, that's when it was like really real. Like, it was real. Like they showed him and the staff, Steve Robinson, Joe Holiday, all them guys, they're literally getting
crazy.
Yeah, like they're saying.
And you guys are just there with these are the guys that have been telling you when to go to practice, coaching you, and now you're just there alone. No coaches, having no idea. That's crazy to think about.
So, yeah, it was surreal, man. Very surreal. Very it was tough.
So what do you, me and B-Turn were talking before this, what do you think, when you see the transfer portal and what it's become in today's college basketball, do you think if that was how it is, if how it is now was like that when this all happened with Roy, do you think you, Aaron, Miles, Wayne, Simeon, are you guys out the door immediately getting recruited by other schools or even trying to follow Roy? Or like, I always think about how different things could have been had you not had to sit out a year and transfer. Or were you guys truly just all in on Kansas and, wouldn't matter?
I wasn't. Wayne and Aaron were, and to their credit, man, this is one thing I respect about those guys, but man, they were extremely, they had a very high level of emotional maturity, even at that time. Like, we still were kids, but when it came time to do stuff, like, their emotional maturity was always pretty good. And I was, so literally, and they never talked about transferring or anything like that. But I tried twice, and I don't think he was not in public record. So I tried, literally, I go into Joni Stevens' office about a week or so after. And I called Coach Williams from Jones office. And I asked Coach Williams if I can come to North Carolina. And he told me, he was like, it means a lot that, you want to follow me here. But he said that, look, he was like, it would look really bad in the press. And, I'm not a very popular person there right now. And so, but I'll tell you this, he said, once they announce the coach, if you really don't like it or you really don't want to, be like, call me back and we'll have this discussion again. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. Let's do it. And then so Coach Self gets there. Coach Self, man, he ran out to me. He's more than, we give you the best 10 minutes of your life. It's not like, if you put him in any room, man, the guy has charisma, man, he'll light it up. Like, he knows what to say, he knows how to make people feel good. So I was like, oh, okay, this isn't going to be bad, man, it's all right. And so, but by that December, I was in the basketball office, my AAU coach and my mom, and requesting the transfer.
So this was halfway through Self's first year?
Yeah, halfway through the first year. Yeah, I was asking for the transfer. And Kansas, so that at that time, I don't know if a lot of people remember this, but at that time, you could you could be granted a release, but sometimes releases could come with stipulations. And so, and so pretty much that was what it was. And I didn't like the stipulation. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna stay. And then so that was how that, so yeah. So, and my thing and with the portal, here's my feeling with the portal. Like, it's bad because the portal's not bad, but the thing that makes it look bad are the guys that are jumping ship, that everybody wants to use and make it the whole story, right? So like, there's guys that are inconsistent, that have bad advice, that have bad AAU coaches or uncles or runners or whoever that is. That's bad. But I look at it like this, as a player, you get 4 years max, to make this right playing. I mean, okay, you can use the COVID thing now, but from a standard standpoint, you get 4 years to make it right. Like, man, coaches, you get 4 chances pretty much, right? So coaches get 20, 25, 30 chances. They, to recruit a new guy, to change a system, to hire a new trainer, to work with a new AD, to get upgraded facilities, to do all these things. So you mean to tell me a guy gets 25 shots at it, and he gets the 2 Final Fours or gets 2 championships in 25 years? Why wouldn't the guy in the portal? He should be, I don't care if he transfers 10 times. All right, like, let's, it's a balancing of the equation. If it's executed in the right way. And so that's how I look at it. But the thing that makes it look bad are the guys that, that think that they're better than what they are and they get bad advice. So
yeah. So talk about that coaching search. Like, I'm always curious, were you guys at all plugged into that? Like, did they come to you at all and say, hey, here's who we're looking at? Or like, I imagine not, because, you're still 19-year-old kids and they're getting paid a lot of money to find a coach. But were you guys involved with that at all? Or like, did you have anyone you wanted to get the job?
Nah, I didn't see anybody. I was like, man, who is, we would talk about like who was out there, and it was like, man, there's nobody that can come in here and be this, who fits this. Like, and we would sit there, man, we were going around about it, and we just did not see it, man. So at one point, I do remember everybody was like, yo, it's going to be Turgeon. Mark Turgeon is coming from Wichita State. And look, I don't know Mark Turgeon. I don't know anybody in Mark Turgeon's family. And I don't mean this to be offensive to Mark Turgeon, because I mean, you did have a good career. But I said, no, if Mark Turgeon is the coach here, I'm fucking out. I don't care what anybody says. I'm gone.
That would have been a problem if he was the hire, because he hadn't even done all the stuff at Wichita State yet. He was still
right. Yeah. So, but he's a KU guy though, right? Like, so
yeah,
they were talking about the ties, and he was right there. So, and then so it went from Turgeon, then it was supposed to be Mark Few, and so And so Mark Few was like, okay. And Gonzaga was still like, they were still building that mystique. You know, it was, they had a couple of those really, really good runs and had a couple of those special standout players that they had. But even then, though, it was like, you know, that Williams. But, and then finally, when, and it was like Coach Self, and I was just like, oh. And so, but I knew I'd always liked Coach Self, even, like I said, when he was recruiting me from Tulsa and Illinois. And man, he always liked, you know, the conversation was fun, you know, being around him was fun. I remember going, when I was in Fort Worth, Tulsa came down to play TCU, and I remember going up in there, talking to the staff and hanging out in the locker room and stuff like that. Like, so I had that rapport, and man, he knocked it out of the park. You know, that first press conference and that first meeting with the team. And it was like, oh, okay, we're gonna do all right. And so, but it wasn't as smooth as it's.
Yeah, because you're trying to train.
Now, so I'm kind of stuck on what to talk about for that season. Just I guess with you and Bill, I don't know if. I guess did you and Bill's relationship get better, or did you just?
Oh, here's the thing, listen, me and Coach Self right now. I would say this, like what I went through with Coach Self. First of all, I was not, you know, mature enough to stay consistent with what Coach Self was trying to teach. But all of the things that I went through, the surgeries, the being cut, the mental toughness that I needed to maximize my journey, I did not have that before he got there. I would not have been able to do that had everything stopped and I left Kansas from, you know, let's say 03 was my senior year, and then I started that journey. There's no way I could have done that, because everything up until that point in my life, from a basketball standpoint, even off court, easy. Everything was easy. Like, I mean, you average 20, 30 points a game in high school, you dominate you get recruited, you go to prom, everything is just seamless. And then you get on campus and you win the Big 12, you go to Final Four, you're the man on campus. I mean, you're living this great lifestyle. And I mean, it's just, there's literally no adversity at all the way up until I was like 20 years old. Like, so had I left from that, then went undrafted, I ended up with 6 knee surgeries, in my career. So even after leaving Kansas, I had 3 in 7 months. I had another 3 after I left. Getting released, having to go to Europe, having to deal with, being there 10 months out of the year. And like, just, I didn't have that wherewithal before Coach Self. So, man, but at the time, I just was so anti everything he was doing. Like, Coach Williams was get the ball out of the rim and go. Coach Self was, I don't want it to go in the rim. Coach Self was, toughness. Keith, you're too skinny. You need to be 225 pounds. We're going to run this high-low. And this high-low. It's true. It's cool. And so I hated him. And then literally, like, the worst thing that ever happened, like, for me, man, it came to a head. We walk in the gym and we're at HVAC. This is before the new practice facility is up, and where the volleyball team plays. All the goals are that, like, there's bubbles on the goal, like, it's where, like, the rebounding drill, like, when you shoot, it came on you. So we had did that before, so the bubble wasn't crazy, but you look at the wall, and on the wall there's helmets and shoulder pads lined up all the way across. And when you look, I was like, and there's names, everybody. So it was like Langford, Miles, Simeon, Graves, Lee. I was like, look, when Coach Self's like, yeah, motherfuckers, we're gonna, put it on. We're gonna crack, we're gonna play today. Fucking stop, fucking you. Sorry.
We love it.
And so I was like, come on, man. I was like, stop basketball. This isn't basketball, man. What are we doing? And then so, man, but we literally put those helmets and he played 5-on-5. We played 3-on-3. We played 1-on-1. We did rebounding drills, and we did conditioning. When we wore that helmet and shoulder pads the entire. And it was just like, I was just like, yo, man, this is the complete antithesis of, this is not the essence of way things were. And I just, I was having such a hard time, man, accepting it. And then I was getting hurt. And then because even after my junior year was over, we moved to Georgia Tech. And I was like, all right, look, I'm done. I'm out. I'm leaving. I'm gone. And then I find out that I needed surgery. And that's when I found out the microfracture. And then it was 4 to 6 months. And then I was like, well, okay, I got to come back. And then so we go to Canada. I hurt my knee again. You have to go back in and clean it up. And then again that September, I had another like twins. And then it was like they went and cleaned it up the third time. And then I was like, and then so by that point, man,
You're stuck with his ass one more year. You had to go back.
Yeah, at that point it's like, all right, I'm a unathletic 4-year senior, and somehow I end up salvaging it, and I don't even know how when I look back, like how the hell did I average 14 points a game? I don't even remember much from. And then at the end of the year, I had the whole kidney thing, and so and it didn't start my last game against Bucknell, like that type of stuff, man. It really puts us like, it's not even the losing aspect of it, but to come that far and then your last game, you don't start, because really I wasn't supposed to play because I was in the hospital, I was sick, and I was supposed to wait. We were supposed to be able to win that game. Well, I remember Coach Self looking down, he kind of gives me the look like, and then like the it. All right, I mean, come on, then yo. And so there's a lot that happened in the end that that was tough to swallow. But man, I wouldn't be sitting here 17 years, with everything that I've accomplished and done, like without that time and without coach and without that message. And then even being able to reach out to him afterwards. Man, he allowed my brother to come there, Justin Wesley. I mean, he just, man, the guy. And then we even had a conversation where he said, Keith, I didn't have it all figured out at that time either. And he just had some real candid conversations. And man, I'll go to bat for the guy, any day for the week.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to circle back to 2004 a little bit, just the Georgia Tech game in St. Louis.
Oof.
And I feel like you're a guy, obviously, that doesn't make a ton of excuses, but I feel like you kind of got shafted a couple times in the tournament while you were at KU. I know Syracuse, there was a tough call late, and then Georgia Tech was one of the worst charging calls of all time. So I guess just touch on that game, because obviously it would have been 3 straight Final Fours for you guys. And did you guys kind of buy in there? I know you had a tough year, it sounds like, but did you guys kind of buy in? Once the tournament came, were you like, all right, let's go?
Okay, yeah, and that's you're exactly right. And so what had happened was, by the time we got going, and because we had some really bad losses. I mean, but by the time we got there and we found a nice little rhythm, and it was just like, hey, like, we're here, we know what this is, we know how to win, we know how this goes, and we really just, man, there was a good energy around it. I mean, I would say that was probably the best time that the entire group had together. Like, there were no issues, like there were no rifts, there was no contention going on the group. So, and once we were knocking on the door, it was like, oh man, like, it was weird. We just looked up and like, boom, we're in the Elite Eight. Like, damn, how did this happen? And so, and that call, man, it's tough. The tough thing about it, like, I remember I did kind of like, throw my arm out a little bit, but the call was 90 feet from the basket. Like, we're totally in the backcourt on the other side. And so for the guy to make that call in overtime, of that game, and when I'm not even gaining an advantage, like I'm literally on the other side of the floor, like that was tough. Like, it wasn't like I was about to go in for a layup and so I was just like, man, and that hurt, because I really do feel like the way that game was going, there was a legitimate chance there. And so, and even the year before, that fifth foul, I'm not saying, I knew obviously we had missed 15 free throws and Jerry McNamara was playing out of his mind. But, you just never know with those things, man. It's kind of like if Wayne Shimian doesn't get hurt, the dynamic of that team is, now you got Nick and Wayne, who knows what kind of rhythm Wayne is in, and then you have Jeff Graves coming from the bench. So I mean, those types of things, man, those are the tough things things that are out of your control. Like I can handle if I would have spun and I would have missed the shot, or if I would rather there be 1 second on the clock and me miss a point blank layup than for the guy to just take me out of the game completely and not have a chance to impact me. So those are the toughest aspects, man. But that 04 team, man, that team was, I don't think we could have won a national championship, but we definitely did good enough to get to a Final Four.
I can't stop thinking about Jeff Graves with a football helmet on and shoulder pads for some reason. Just him walking around saying crazy shit.
And I would say, listen, and at that point in time, Coach and Jeff, like, if me and Coach were having our rounds, Coach and Jeff were having their rounds too. And I remember Coach, the pad, more like the pad would be go up on layup and down hit it. And at one point, Jeff tried to be there, but Coach was man, like that was just the kind of energy that was going around at that point, and it was just it was tough, man. I looking back on it now, I could see there being a ton of pressure on Coach Stokes. Coach Stokes, 40s,
or a legend.
Coach Williams, and it's just like, so there's just a lot of energy and a lot of different things going on around me.
Yeah, and he wasn't just taking over like it's a tough thing to take over Kansas. That's a huge job, the expectations, but you also take over a group of guys that had already been to 2 Final Fours, and it's like, we're going to just do what the hell we want because it's worked. So why would we play so it is crazy to think of his provoke.
One of the, we beat them both, too. So it was kind of like, yo, man, like, look, this shit doesn't work. That was kind of cool, so. But,
so obviously things started to work out, right? 04 went fine. You guys made a run in the tournament. 05 expectations crazy to start the year. I think you were preseason number 1, and then you almost lost to like the EA Sports All-Stars or something. But but still, that team was, obviously you guys are seniors now. You're loaded, and you start out really good. And I always joke with
something like that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I always joke with B-Turn and AB, the other guy on the show, that Daryl Dora, if he doesn't bank that 3 at Texas Tech, I think that season maybe goes differently. Like, that was the turning point. And I've always wondered what happened to that team kind of your second half of your senior. Obviously, you were battling injuries and stuff like that, but what do you think?
So here's the crazy thing about it, man. So, like, at that point, I don't know if you remember, but Wayne gets hurt. Right, Wayne hurt, like he has like a ligament torn in his thumb or something. Wayne was playing incredible, but he gets hurt, and then so at that point, the offense that Coach started to run was the foundation for kind of what they did in 08, like and that guard oriented, that motion, that pick and roll. So without Wayne, because we were feeding Wayne, like Wayne was the focus, right? And then when he got hurt, it was like, hey, all right, well, Keith, we're going to use your penetration and your aggressiveness, and we're going to use Aaron, and we're going to use JR shooting, and we're going to spread this thing out. So, man, we found a really good rhythm and a really good pace with that. And so, man, I remember it. We go to Texas Tech, and we're playing, man, and I was like, we're going to win. In my mind, I'm thinking like, all right, they can beat us, but we're in control, but they're keeping it close. And so, but man, like you said, Daryl Dora, like, literally, on the scouting report, man, the guy had made like maybe 2 or 3 threes the whole season, and he hits that shot, and it was just like. And so I would say this though: what was going on that year was like there was the vibes and the group wasn't exactly cohesive, but we were winning, so it was keeping a lot of that energy at bay. So a lot of stuff was going on. But, the winning was keeping it at bay. And I think so when we lost, I remember getting back in Lawrence and we had a meeting. And so, and Coach Self, man, he's ripping everybody. He's just kind of going down the line and, and he gets to me at one point and he's like, Langford, he's like, nah, he said something about all you want is the damn camera to look at your shoes after halftime. And and I was like, I said, no, I don't agree. That's not true. And he was like, damn, you always got something to say. And then so at that moment, he was like, everybody in the gym right now, we're going to practice. And thank your senior for for making you guys practice right now. So like everybody like pissed at me. And they did up and we got going in practice. And so man, so that happened. And I want to say like, man, we had another tough game that I cannot remember. Like I said, I don't remember a lot from the senior, but what I do remember is that year, because I was hurt, I had been getting injections before every game. So I was getting, and then so, but you know, it was Toradol and stuff like that at that time. Like that was, what was typical. You know, everybody used Toradol and those things. And so, but whatever we were playing at Missouri, and we started the game really well. I rolled my ankle. I took my injection before the game. So now, mind you, I've been taking it all season. And so I took my injection before the game, and then I roll my ankle, and it's hurting me. I go back in the locker room, and they give me another one. And it didn't take, I didn't finish playing. I didn't finish the game. But that night, I get back to Lawrence, like my back is killing me. 3 o'clock in the morning, I called the trainer. And I remember Greg Hagens. I don't know if you guys remember. Greg Hagens, a football player from Kansas City. So I'm supposed to, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm supposed to go meet Bill Cowgill at the training room. And literally, I walk out of the towers and I collapse on the grass in front of the Jayhawk Towers. And Greg Hagens just happened to be driving by. He's like, hey, Keith, hey, man. He's like, hey, Keith, man. And I was like, yeah, man, my back. So he helps me up, man, drives me over to the thing. And then so finally, man, so I'm in the hospital. And so the doctor comes in, he says, well, Keith, he was like, your kidney function is failing, but we don't know why. And so, and at that point, so it's like I'm away from the team, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. The energy around the team's not well. I think we lose again in the Big 12 tournament to like Oklahoma State, and so nobody knows if I'm going to play, if I'm not, and I'm in my feelings because I'm starting to feel like, oh, well, nobody cares and nobody can visit me, and in the media, all they're talking about is I had like gastroenteritis or something like that, or like he just needs a good bowel movement or something like. But I'm serious, man. Like that was really kind of, and I was just like, y'all pissed. Like and so anyway, we ended up finding out that it was an allergic reaction to the injection, and so so anyway, I finally joined and get back to the team, and like I said, man, I was just in my own space, and it was a little bit selfish looking back on it now, but I was just so angry and I was so mad. I was mad about a lot of things. I was mad about Coach Williams leaving. I was mad about not being able to transfer. I was mad about the knee surgeries. I was mad about the injections. I was mad about, I just and when it came down to it, and then I was mad, like literally no one came to see me, but okay, they're playing, they're practicing, they're doing all these things. So I was like, all right. And so anyway, get to the NCAA tournament and we're trying to figure out, if I'm going to play or not. And we're looking at it like, all right, but now I think the next game would have been like Wisconsin or something like that. So it was like, all right, we'll rest and then play Wisconsin. And so anyway, we'll play if we need you. We'll start Mike Lee. All right, okay. So, still I love Mike Lee. I still talk to Mike. Me and Mike Lee talk trash to this day. But I should have started. And so in it, and 21-year-old me can't really get out of my own way with these things. So, we start the game and I'm kind of sitting there, and then by the time it was all of these types of, and I mean, there's all other kind of little fires just around the team, not just me. There's little things going on. And so the loss, my injury, Wayne's injury, and just a lot of those things started coming to a head, and it just came to a head and erupted at the wrong time. And then by the time everybody was like, oh no, we don't want to lose, it was too late, man. The juju was gone. The juju was bad. The mojo was gone. The juju was bad, and it was just crap.
I mean, At that point, it's crazy to think you guys had been to 2 Final Fours. You made the Elite Eight the year before. So, like, losing in the first round was just, like, probably not even something that you would even entertain being possible.
Especially it's kind of interesting just sitting back, just thinking, obviously, it was your whole class's senior year. I mean, you guys started off so well that year until, obviously, the Villanova game. But you guys start undefeated. Everyone's back. JR, I felt like, he was a huge recruit, but he was a big NBA prospect at one point. So you guys at one point probably thought
as a
national champions.
No, and it could have been, man. Really could have been, but I looking back on it and knowing what I know, and like it was a house of cards. And at the end of the day, the one thing that really bothered me more so than anything, and I said this at the beginning of it, and it ended up coming to fruition. And so that's why I believe in, like, you know, words have power, and, you know, things manifest themselves. And then, you know, they would always ask me, like, gee, like, why are you so defiant? Like, what's the problem? Like, why are you tripping so much? And I was like, man, I said, because look, I said, coaching is going to be successful and Kansas is going to be all right. I said, but, you know, everything that's accomplished after us is going to be at our expense. And I don't want to be the guinea pigs of this experiment. I don't want that. And like, I don't want, oh, well, you know, he got here and it was rough and they struggled, but he figured it out. And which kind of actually ended up happening, because, you know, it's kind of like, you know, and the way I would look at it, and I don't, you know, using this analogy, you know, no disrespect to, you know, anybody can try somebody past, I think we all have, but a lot of times, you know, like, you know, in death, you know, like, you fertilize the ground for the soil, for the trees and the grass is going to grow. And so it's kind of like we were that proverbial, you know, fertilizer. And so like, and I didn't want to be that. You know, I wanted to stay on the wave and the energy that we were on. Like, I didn't want to start over. You know, I did not like that aspect. And when we started over, it was such a dramatic, it was a complete 180 from what we were doing. And I just, in the back of my mind, I just always felt like, it was like, man, this is, so that was the tough part, man. I
mean, that's crazy. So you kind of like saw the future almost in a way. So, I mean, you you liked Bill, but you clearly knew he was going to be, you seemed convinced he was going to be pretty good, right? So you kind of,
yeah. I always feel like once he got the guys he wanted, like I feel like that's any coach. Like once you get your guys and once you get your feet under you, because I even remember, man, it used to be a big deal about, I remember like when some of the older guys would come back and they would talk about Coach Williams, like, when he first started here. Like Coach Williams' beginning was not sweet, right? Like he didn't kick in the door with 30 wins. He didn't kick in the door with Elite Eights and national champions. I mean, it didn't take him long. It was like it didn't take Coach Self long. By the 08, you know, he was, but man, like the beginning, like I would be interested to hear the guys who started with Coach Williams. Like I would be interested to hear their stories, like, you know, because they, you know, they were kind of sacrificed for them to, you know, take off and build KU the way they did. There's a lot of trial and error that goes into that. And I didn't want us to be used in that way. And then in turn, it also made me even more angrier at Coach Williams for a long time, because I was just like, man, you know, we just kind of got served up, you know, in this awkward in-between space.
Yeah.
Well, I know we haven't had anyone from early Roy days, but I know we've had Jeff Graves on, and I know he struggled too once Bill got here. And I think Bill had recruited him to Illinois too. So I just can't imagine that change, especially like play style, the way they coach. Like Bill's obviously hard-nosed, can piss you off, get people fired up. But yeah, I can't imagine that, just that change from Roy to Bill.
Oh man, listen, it was just, I distinctly, man, I can remember times it was like he blows the whistle one time when he looks at me, he's like, oh my God, Keith, oh my God. I was like, what? He's like, that's literally the softest thing I've ever seen in my life. And he was just like, I can't believe it. Like, how, I have no idea how you guys got so far. Like, these are the softest, like, those one of the softest guys you've ever seen. And they're like, you know, like, you should agree with that, right? You'd agree that these are the softest guys in the country.
How many times did he? How many times did he use the word pussy?
Oh my God. Was he? I mean, just hey man, the guy has a incredible knack for finding whatever it is, whatever that word is, or whenever it had like space is, that he knows how to get in there and knows how to push it. Man. And so, man, Coach Self is perfect if you don't know anything else. And I really believe if you don't know anything else, like, man, it's hard. And I would say if you guys ever have Lenny Martin on here, like even transferring in from somewhere else and then adapting to Coach, like it's hard. Like, and so
Malik Newman really struggled too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's one of those things that, man, you can't really know anything else and get here and happen like that. Man, you have to be incredibly tough minded and you have to have a really good support system with people that understand, you know, the dynamic of how that works. But if not, man, if you're left to figure it out with your own 19, 20, 21-year-old brain, it can be tough, man.
Do you think Self's gotten a little in his own way, like softer? Obviously, he's still like an absolute, I mean, the best coach in the game by far, but like, 100%. Is he less demanding than he was for you guys, you think? Or not demanding, but I don't know. It feels like he's changed.
No, so you know what? I think that Coach, I think he's more selective in those moments now, just from what I've seen. Now, I haven't been around as consistently as a lot of guys, but the times that I've dropped in and I've seen practice or I've seen him address the team and different stuff, like he's very selective, but let's trust me, man, he's at the same level. The same level, the intensity, the challenging, the pushing of the team, the mental aspect, like it's still at the same level, but it's more selective. It's not like, man, for us it was around the clock. Like, I mean, you just were, and it was so crazy, man, because the dude was so cool, man. You go up in the office, It was extremely cool, and it was like, it was a total, man, it was a mind that, because this guy, like, I like sitting down and talking to him, or but then you go downstairs and like, man, I hate it. So
yeah, it's like he's so charismatic, but the next 5 minutes later, he's calling you soft, and like you're like, what?
Well, listen, I would say this about Coach Self, man. Whenever you see guys, like when there's total buy-in to what he does and what he's doing, man, it is, like you said, it's what makes him the best. Like, 'cause I don't think there's a coach that can do more with buy-in than him. Like, man, he doesn't need top tens. He doesn't, they're welcome, but man, when he gets guys to buy in and they're able to execute, to the level that I don't see like this. You're always there. You always have a shot, and there's literally nobody that does that better. I say that from from watching it from afar, so like that wasn't exactly my experience with him, per se.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about some positives towards the end of your KU career, and I think it's the first game I ever remember being Allen. I'm in one of the corners up there, like second to last row, and I feel like it really like made me be like, okay, this is like one of the best places in the world. It's Georgia Tech on New Year's Day. Obviously, you guys had lost to them the year before. You hit the game winner. You show a ton of emotion after. I guess just talk about getting them back and just playing inside of Allen Fieldhouse in general.
Yeah, the cool thing about that, man, is that for the first time, like my son has just gotten into basketball. It just turned 10 a couple months ago. And so, and I showed him that video for the first time. And so he made a notebook. Actually, this is it right here on the table. He made a notebook, and it was like, it said on the front of it, it says Kansas and Duke. And so, like, those were, like, the two schools that he, wants to go to, wherever. So, anyway, I showed him that video, and man, he was mesmerized. He was like, Dad, that's yours? He's like, oh, man. He was like, oh. He was like, what about these? What are they doing over here? And it was like, And, I had seen it so many times before. I was pretty like numb to it, right? But watching how excited he was to see it just literally on a YouTube video, like it going back to that moment, man, and hearing the field house like that and being in that setting, man, like it's just, I really, it gives me like, man, it makes my stomach, like I start to feel like those nerves and like, it's like, I'm right back in there. And so, the thing about playing at Allen Fieldhouse, man, is that it gives you like a fearlessness that you can game with. And so, if you can once you get past the nerves or the butterflies of the game, like that crowd, man, when it's electric and it's blowing like that, there's literally no fear, in any aspect of the game. And so, and the combination of, like you said, I don't know why it was so electric in there. Maybe it was they beat us the year before. Maybe it was the fact that it was New Year's. Maybe it was all of it, man. But that was just it was a great time, and man, even more like the shot is dope, man. And it's a great memory, but just that vibe, that energy, that walk into the field house, knowing, like oh, this is something. This is before the ball even goes up, like, and
It is kind of funny to think about because that game, I mean, it's a big game, Georgia Tech. You guys played them last year, but like it really didn't. It wasn't like you won a Big 12 title because of it. You didn't, but it's still a game that everyone talks about to this day, and it's awesome.
And Jack, point guard for the team at the time, we were together at the summer before at the as counselors at the Nike camp, and we were also counselors at the Jordan camp in Santa Barbara. And so we were talking, and he's kind of giving it to me a little bit, but I'm like, all right, man, you talking, but y'all got to come to the field house, next season. And he's like, yeah, like that, we wanted that game. Blah, blah, blah. So man, they came, man. It was just so man, I mean, so many storylines. I mean, that was, like you said, from my senior year. There are some highs. I mean, and that's definitely one of them. And even for me, like the great thing about that game was that, like, I had been through, the surgeries, and I had went through, a lot of that tough time. To like that, like I was probably that was the best I would have played since, that was the healthiest I felt. That was the best I had played since, we lost to Georgia Tech. It's kind of like a full circle kind of moment. Like after all the injuries, the slow start to the season and everything, and like, boom, we were playing really well, and it culminated in this big ass game with this big ass shot. And I'm like, okay, me and I can kind of starting to get some of the old Keith back.
Yeah. I've always wondered this about guys that kind of stick around for a while. And you talked about the atmosphere at Mizzou earlier, but Allen Fieldhouse like takes it to a different level. So I didn't know, like, if you ever maybe thought you took Allen Fieldhouse for granted, or was it one of those things where every night it's just loud and you love it and you can't wait because you played so many games in there?
Yeah, never, man. There was never a time, never a time where I walked in there and was like, oh, this kid is old. Like, it's not like, nah, man. It was one of those things where, like, even if you're playing against UNC Asheville, or even if you're playing against, like, man, you have to breathe, and you're going to. And so play good, play bad, or whatever, early game, late game. Man, it just, I mean, what's crazy? Here's a random game from the 03 team, man. We played Wyoming in the field house, man. I don't know if you got missing, man. If you ever have a chance, man, you go back and look at that Wyoming game in the field house. And like, you would just think Wyoming at Kansas, and it might have been a December game or something like that. And like, I mean, very insignificant. Like, it doesn't, I mean, man, when I talk about atmosphere and vibe and like energy and like, man, that game, man, like, it's one of those, like, just on a random night in December, man, it's just, it could have been a NBA Finals. It was just like that. So there was never a time I played in there. There was never a time where I didn't like it, or I didn't want to be there. Even when I was, in my tough times, like, they just didn't, like, how can I don't know.
There's nothing close to it, I feel.
Yeah, there's literally no words, man. I mean, there's no words. And even guys who didn't have great careers or guys who did like, they all show us some respect, or they all give it up, or they all, and still to this day, like people that I played against, that I come across, that they've been in there, like, I mean, man, they always give it up.
Yeah. Because even as a fan, like there'll be some, I guess I've been in that building so many times. I grew up 10 miles from Lawrence. So I feel like there'll be games where I don't soak it up as much. And Rye, I don't know if you feel that same way, but there'll be nights I go, I watch the intro videos and the pump up videos, and you just, I guess, tear up a little bit. I mean, so I've always,
I'm telling you, you can't. And also too, I will say this too. I think a lot of times, like, especially those first 2 years, man, I think those teams, the 02 and the 03 team, like, man, they just had a really special place in the hearts of the fans too. And so, like, I want to say, man, in those 2 years, like, there were just moments where you could feel like the endearment coming through in the fans. So, like, they always love KU and they always cheer for them. But man, when they really connect to a group, I mean, you can see that. I think it's kind of the same for the 22 team. I mean, I just think that everybody's literally fell in love with that team. So, like, every time they played, I mean, you could just feel, because I was like, when you watching the footage of New Orleans and watching the guys embrace one another, all the ex-players that were there or something, like, you just don't see it like that all the time. I just think everybody, that team had a special connection that bridged a lot of gaps and just brought out a lot of real strong love that everybody carried. So that makes it special too.
Yep. So, all right, as much as I hate to, we've got to start to wrap this up, but I wanted to, this has been awesome. And I have a few rapid fire questions I want to throw at you. I had a friend that wanted me to ask one of these, and then I'm just curious about a few. You mentioned the shoes earlier. Would you have been devastated if KU switched to Adidas while you were there?
Oh, yes. I can't express, like, it hurts to watch Adidas on the feet to this day, man. It still feels weird to me to go into the gym and watch them with Adidas, man. So yes, like, listen, I don't know, maybe this is what I would have done. I'd have worn Nikes and put tape over the Nike set. There's no way Adidas on my feet at any point.
I feel like the sneaker thing was obviously always a huge Keith Langford thing, besides just being a great player. But were you always a sneakerhead? And how did the halftime thing start when you changed shoes?
So I wasn't always a sneakerhead, but I was always like, I was just big on, like, man, it's not a sneakerhead, but I was like, your game shoes have to pop. And that was just the cultural thing from, like, where I grew up. So, like, every time you went to watch a certain high school team play, like, I grew up watching Dunbar, like, Fort Worth, Dunbar High School, very, very famous high school. A lot of really big athletes came out of there, man. And you would just go to the game, and part of going to the game was like, man, what shoes were these guys, like Demetrius Shaw, Mike Byers, what shoes were these guys going to wear? What were they pulling out? What was going on? So, like, it became a cultural thing from where I was from. So, like, man, your shoes, no matter what, when you see me, it's going to be like, oh, what are those? Man, he makes those look sweet. Man, how's him, like, that was, I needed that energy. And if the shoes didn't give me that energy, I couldn't wear. And well, the second question was what? What was it?
When did the halftime thing start changing shoes?
Look, I was so it's crazy, man. On my visit to Kansas, I really, really wanted some shoes. They had these Nike Flight Posits. They were really cool. And but I wear a size 13, and the only size they had left was 15. And I was like, Mom, I gotta have those shoes. Like, I need those. And so anyway, so she ends up buying them. She was like, look, I don't give a damn. They're size 15, but you're gonna wear these shoes every game and not take them off. Like, I'm paying money for these shoes and they're too big, but you're gonna wear them. So anyway, so my senior, I'm wearing these big ass size 15s because I got these from Kansas, man. Like these were, I was like, yo, these are sweet. I love them. So anyway, I'm playing great my senior year. Everything's going well. But one day after school, before the game, on the game day, me and my friends, we go to the mall, and I saw like these, I bought like this other random pair of shoes, and they were like kind of cool or whatever. So I put them on, and I wear them to the game, and I wear them in the game. I'm sorry, and I'm playing terrible in the first half. And so, halftime, we're going into the locker room, and as we're walking through the door, as we're walking towards the door, look, I see my mom. She's standing right there at the door. She's pissed. So like my mom, she always, in all my high school games, she always had a spiral notebook and a more pen. So she got a pen right here. She's got the spiral notebook right here, and I can see it. You know, like when your parents, when they whisper yell, like you really are in trouble. Like, come on,
Yeah.
put those damn shoes off right now, and put your other shoes back on. And I was like, well, I said, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Put the damn shoes on. Go away, man. Put the shoes on. I had like 20-something points in the second half. And I just started doing it from there. Anytime I went from the world.
Yeah, that was an awesome just like thing for you to be known as. People, ESPN always talked about it. So this is a really random question, but I joked that I wanted to bring it up. Did you frequent the Topeka Mall very often, or do you remember going to the Topeka Mall?
Yes. Listen, my girlfriend at the time in college was from Topeka.
So the reason I bring it up is I remember. So I would have. This sounds weird, but I was like 7 or 8 at the time, and I saw you at the Topeka Mall, and I was like, you know, at that point when you're 7, 8 years old, you guys were like,
yeah,
like celebrities. And I literally remember I like followed you, not really followed you, but like I saw you go into Foot Locker, and I was like, I gotta go into Foot Locker. And I remember just watching you buy shoes or like look at shoes. And I think back on that, it was like such a weird thing, but hilarious to hear you talking about buying shoes.
I love stories like that, man. But they just man, it puts me right back into those moments. Man. I just can't express like, man, that's funny. It's incredible that you remember that, and it's incredible. Like I can feel myself and see myself walking through that to the mall.
Yeah, sad place to be now.
No, to be a regular, man. I was a regular at Topeka, man. So
that's awesome.
So I have a question. It's maybe the most important question of the pod. Ryan led the show off your top 8 scorer in Kansas history. Do you deserve to have your jersey retired in Allen Fieldhouse?
So that's interesting, man. So when I left, I was 6, right? And so I was like, look, I don't mind if guys pass me as long as I don't get pushed out in the top 10. Like, now, once whoever that guy is that pushes me out to like 11, I'm going to be like, oh, don't, that last shot, I may not want it to go in. But anyway, as far as as far as the jersey thing goes, it's interesting because when I look back on my career, like I always felt like, hey man, I'm one of the best, and I did this, and then I did and I did that, and so I was on the All Final 14 and all these things. But I was like, man, like sometimes when I look back, like I'm not trying to be, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but I really wasn't as good as what I thought I was. You know what I'm saying? Like, but definitely a good player, right? Like good player, man, high level player, but like it's not a bona fide, like hands down type thing. Like now if Coach So at some point decided to move the goalpost a little bit and say, all right, guys who made the All Final 14 or guys who were 3-time All Big 12, because I was 3-time second team, I think. 3-time second team, never was on the first. And so the goalpost would have to be moved a little bit. So while I do, acknowledge that I was a really good player, like I do understand that I did not reach the actual requirements to do so. So I kind of fall in a weird space. So will I appreciate it? And man, would I be extremely excited and accepted and have all of my family in the stands and cry and do all things? Absolutely. I would love it. I would love to have it done sometimes. But if I don't, I'm not one of those guys that like was going to campaign for it, because I do understand, and I don't want somebody that really earned it and got there, based on their accomplishments. I don't want it to, I won't say, I don't want to, I hate to say watered down, but that's the only term that can that can come to mind. My only gripe at the end of the day is that, like, it's weird that, like, let's say a guy, his total career may not be, like, career numbers may not be what mine were, but the guy had a season to where he got actual requirement, and so that puts his jersey in the rafters versus me. That's really my only thing. So, like, body of work wise, I do think I have a case, but if there was a guy who, maybe he didn't do anything as a freshman and a sophomore, but as a junior, he knocked it out of the park and he got 2 or 3 awards. So, I mean, it's the way the game goes. But man, I would love it, but if it doesn't happen, I understand.
That was a very, very fair response. It was mature of you, because I think you should be up there. I know a lot of fans think you should be up there, and I get it. You kind of said it, like, you don't want to water it down, and in any player that's close like you could make some sort of
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because if he exactly, but if you let me in, then there's who else do you have to let in? You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. Like Russell Robinson's probably like, well, hey, I was point guard for a national title team. Like, why am I? Yeah. So,
exactly. And then Russ would, he had, a certain case, you know what I mean? But like I said, the only thing, if they say, all right, all Final Four team, you're in there, okay, all right, I raise my hand, I'll go. But other than that, man, like, I just, as much as, because I want to say when I first got to Kansas, it was either National Player of the Year or Final First
Team All-American or
MOP or National Player of the Year. That was it. And then so it's changed a lot in different times. So, all right, I mean, if it's 10 years from now, I'll say, whatever, I'll take it.
Yeah. But it's like I said, I feel like you and Miles and Simeon, like, you guys have that, you're part of such a bigger part of the program because of the shift from Roy to self, and it's like, I feel like you all belong up there. So
no, listen, Aaron Miles absolutely belong. Aaron Miles, all-time assist leader. Kansas history is all-time Big 12 assist leader. I mean, how does that guy not? I really think. And he, for what I know about Aaron, man, I'm telling you, man, the most selfless guy, man. Like, I mean, just that I've never played. One of the most selfless people out there in the mall. Like, man, he deserves it, man, because he was, man, he could have he sacrificed a lot for himself and his personal gain, and for the betterment of the team. So,
what about this? Is Aaron Miles going to be the next head coach of Kansas in 15 years, 10 years?
Listen, hey, man, great question. And so I'll let you in on something. Aaron, I have a very good inkling that whenever Coach Self decides that he's done, I have a very good inkling that Aaron Miles will be the first phone call is made wherever he is. And if Aaron does get that phone call, I have a very good inkling that I know who all will be on his staff. So,
okay,
man, very interesting full circle moment that can ever come to pass. So
that would be incredible.
Yeah. So, I don't know how long down the line that is, but just in case, man, you'll be able to look back on this recorder.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Saw the future again. As we wrap it up, I know the other guy that's on our pod, he wasn't able to make it on, but he texted us before and was like, tell Keith thanks for the memories. And it just got me thinking, like, Keith Langford is the reason I fell in love with Kansas and, like, Kansas basketball. And I tweeted today, Keith's my favorite Jayhawk of all time. So it's like, it's awesome interviewing you. And obviously first 2 years were great. We made a couple Final Fours, top 10 on the scoring list. So I don't know if, I'm sure some players sit there and wonder how much they're loved sometimes, but people our age were just obviously obsessed with you. The shoes, 0203 had the best uniforms ever, by the way. We didn't talk about that, but yeah, I truly, just the shoes, and obviously watching lefties is fun playing. Watching lefties play is fun too. So
yes, man. I want to say, man, how much I really do appreciate that, man. And here's the thing, like, and I know we're wrapping it up, but like, man, the one thing I appreciate the most about Kansas is, like, you know, I was so close to not having any of it. You know what I mean? Like, I told the story earlier about all the guys that had to say no in order for me to be there, all the dominoes that had to drop, man. So, like, for my life, man, what was able to happen and all the people that I was able to impact and the things that, I mean, even the first 2 years, the last 2 years, man, this time at this place, man, it changed my life, my family's life. And I mean, man, I'm just forever grateful to all the people that make Kansas what it is, the fans, the media, the staff, everybody around it, man. I mean, I don't have enough words to speak on my appreciation. You know, I don't have enough time, and I will never, you know, have a bad thing to say. I always be honest, but I'll never have a bad thing to say about, you know, the way this has changed my life, man. And so I'm forever grateful, man. Thank you for what you said, man. The Topeka Mall story, you did incredible. And these little things, man, is what I appreciate so much. I mean, I don't regret anything. Man, you know, I can't say enough, bro. I mean, this is, and I apologize for it taking so long, but the fact that I am doing this and the fact that I'm saying this now, man, I love this fucking school. And my wife, she doesn't understand it. She's like, why in the hell do you always get excited when you get on this turnpike? But she does not realize and she does not understand. I mean, my 4-year-old daughter, man, she just, you know, she knows how to wave a wheat now. I mean, you know, my son has a notebook, you know, and it's all because of those dominoes fell and I was able to be in this place, man. And so I love this, love being able to do this, man. Thank you guys. Thank you.
It's awesome. That's a great way to wrap it up. We appreciate it. You gave us a lot of your time tonight. So this was super fun and obviously a legend, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Oh, awesome. I appreciate you guys, man. Thanks, bro. Really, seriously. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. Check out these videos that feature our team of more than 15 former players, insiders, and analysts, bringing you the best Chiefs coverage you can find. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.